Imagine two people commit the exact same crime. Same day, same city. One gets 3 years in prison, the other gets 20. Same crime, same circumstances, different judge. This isn't some flaw in the system. This is the system. Welcome to Nonfiction Insights, where we break down big ideas from nonfiction books so you can actually understand them. Today we're doing a deep dive into a really important book, Noise, A Flaw in Human Judgment by Daniel Kahneman, Olivier Sibony, and Cass Sunstein.
And our mission here is to get our heads around one core idea from this book. We're going to distinguish between two types of error bias and noise. And we're going to see why this thing called noise, this inconsistency in judgment, is a massive hidden crisis. It's causing injustice in our courts, it's costing companies millions, and it's even affecting your medical care.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the foundational distinction because it really changes how you think about experts. Let's start with bias because that's the error everyone's already heard of.
Right. Bias is a systematic deviation. It's when judgments are consistently off target, but in one specific direction. So think about a venture capitalist who is just routinely too optimistic. If they're projecting these huge returns 80% of the time, well, that consistent tilt is bias.
Exactly. Bias is directional. It's predictable. Noise, though, is a totally different beast. Noise is just unwanted variability. It's random scatter in judgments that really should be identical. It's basically the unreliability of a professional.
The book uses a shooting target analogy, and it's honestly perfect for this. Imagine you're a professional, say, a judge. The bullseye is the correct judgment.
Okay, so if you see a tight cluster of shots that are all, say, 5 inches to the left of the bullseye, that's bias. The shots are reliable, but they're reliably wrong.
And noise is the opposite. Noise is when those shots are just scattered everywhere, high, low, left, right, all over the entire target. You've got this wide divergence where identical cases get completely different results.
And here's the key insight that I think makes this research so powerful. Organizations, they spend all this time and money looking for bias. But the authors point out that you can actually measure the noise without knowing anything about where the bullseye even is.
That's a fascinating way to put it. So you don't need to define a perfect decision to know that just random outcomes are a huge problem.
Yeah.
But let me push back on that a little bit. I mean, when we're talking about something like evaluating leadership potential or a complex medical diagnosis, isn't some disagreement just human? Why is that scatter automatically a flaw?
That's a great question. And you're right. We don't expect perfect agreement. No one does.
Yeah.
But the central surprise of the book is the sheer magnitude of the scatter. The divergence is just so much greater than any professional system should tolerate.
So if we expect judgments to be in a reasonable range, but instead we find just total chaos, then we have a problem.
Exactly. And once you see that this system noise exists, the book helps break it down into 3 different types, which helps you see where all that chaos is coming from. Let's stick with judges for a second. First up, there's something called level noise. This one's pretty easy to grasp. It's just the variability in how severe judges are on average. Some judges are known as hanging judges, right? They're just consistently harsh. Others are more lenient.
Okay, that makes total sense. That's just their personality showing up.
Right. But the next one, pattern noise. This is where the really big problems are hiding. Pattern noise is the stable, idiosyncratic way that different people respond to specific cases relative to their own average.
What do you mean by that?
Well, one judge might be generally average on severity, but maybe they weigh a defendant's criminal record much more heavily than, say, how remorseful they seem. Another judge, who's also average overall, might do the complete opposite.
So it's not just about being harsh or lenient in general. It's that their unique personality and experiences make them react completely differently to the exact same set of facts.
That's the key. And what's really crucial here is that study after study shows this stable pattern noise is generally the largest source of noise in the whole system. It's the most damaging kind of randomness.
Wow. So the single biggest error isn't a bad day or a grumpy judge, but the simple fact that different experts just weigh the facts in their own unique personal way, even when the case is identical. That's unsettling.
It should be. And it gets even more interesting. The final type is occasion noise. This is the variability in the same person's judgment on different occasions.
Okay, so this is me making bad decisions when I'm hungry or tired. You're saying this happens to judges and doctors too?
Absolutely. And on a massive scale. There was a study of primary care physicians, for instance. It showed they were significantly more likely to prescribe opioids at the end of a long day, probably due to stress, fatigue, who knows. But the point is, same doctor, same symptoms, different outcome depending on the time of day.
That is deeply troubling. So the patient with the 4 p.m. appointment is literally facing a different standard of care than the one who came in at 9 a.m.
It's a lottery. Occasion noise is the second lottery. The lottery of the hour, the professional's mood, maybe the last case they saw is still fresh in their mind. The book even mentions forensic experts, like fingerprint examiners, who change their minds about the same set of prints about 1 in 10 times when shown them months apart.
Okay, so if this randomness is everywhere, level, pattern, and occasion noise all compounding, why are we only just now calling this a crisis? I mean, how is this really different from just saying, well, humans are imperfect?
That's the core confusion, right? And the book really clarifies it. The problem isn't that noise exists, it's that organizations have never measured it, and they are just shocked when they finally do. The authors call it a leak in the basement. It's tolerated not because it's okay, but just because no one noticed it was there.
And why don't we notice it?
Because we're wired for causal thinking. We look at a case, we create this coherent story about it, and that story feels true and complete. It doesn't leave any room in our minds for random scatter. And we also suffer from what they call the illusion of agreement.
The illusion of agreement.
Yeah, think about it. When a really terrible, egregious mistake happens, everyone agrees it was a mistake. And that easy agreement on the worst cases tricks us into thinking we agree on all the acceptable or good judgments too.
And I think what's fascinating there is how we mistake that feeling of coherence for a solid decision. If the story in my head feels neat and simple, I feel really confident in my judgment.
Even if you just manage to fit the facts into a good story, not necessarily the right outcome. Which brings us back to the main point. Let's restate this for you, the listener. Noise is a hidden lottery. Your medical diagnosis, your job promotion, your prison sentence. It all depends partly on the identity, personality, or even just the mood of the person randomly chosen to judge you.
And the numbers they present on the scale of this lottery are just jaw-dropping. It is not minor stuff.
Not at all. Take the study of Polish judicial candidates. They were all given the same massive 100-page court file. Identical defendant, identical case. The sentences they proposed for this one fictional person ranged from a small fine all the way to a long prison term.
Wow.
It just shows how quickly these sentencing guidelines, which are supposed to allow for flexibility, just become a breeding ground for randomness.
And it's just as bad in business, right? I'm thinking of that insurance underwriting audit.
Oh, that one's incredible. They found the median difference between two underwriters pricing the same risk was 55%.
55%.
So to put that in real money, one underwriter quotes you $9,500 for a risk, and another underwriter at the same company quotes you $16,700 for the exact same risk.
That has huge consequences.
Yeah.
For the company, for the client. And it raises this massive question about credibility. If the system is that variable, it just gets damaged. You expect a judgment to reflect the company's values, not one person's taste.
Exactly. People expect due process, which implies consistency, but often that idea gets twisted into calling for more professional discretion, which, as we're seeing, just opens the door for more noise. Let's apply this to something we can all relate to, job interviews. They are notoriously noisy.
I've heard they're bad, but how bad are we talking?
The data suggests that if one candidate seems better in an interview, their chance of actually performing better on the job is only about 56 to 61%. It's barely better than a coin flip. It suggests the final decision really hinges on these small, noisy factors like rapport or, just liking someone.
So if human judgment is this noisy, especially for things like hiring, should we just replace people with algorithms? If formulas are better, why not automate everything?
Well, algorithms are superior for prediction, and it's precisely because they are noiseless. They just apply a rule consistently every single time. They don't get hungry, they don't get tired. And yes, studies confirm that even simple models often outperform expert human judgment because they eliminate all three kinds of noise completely.
There's a huge tension there, isn't there? If you eliminate noise with an algorithm, you could end up creating a more consistent and maybe more dangerous form of bias.
That's the ethical minefield. An algorithm could be more reliably biased if it learns from discriminatory human data. It would apply that discrimination with perfect consistency without the random human moment of mercy or individual consideration.
So the goal isn't a completely automated, dehumanized world. It's about living in a less noisy world. We need to keep the human element, but clean up the random inconsistency.
Exactly. So how do we do that? How do we find that balance? That's where the book gets really practical with this idea they call decision hygiene.
And they call it hygiene because, like hand washing, It's a prevention strategy. You don't know exactly which germ you're preventing, you just know it protects you from a lot of them.
Right. The first strategy is to structure and define judgments. Don't just ask about leadership potential. Break it down. Define what a good rating means with clear behavioral examples. This reduces the personal interpretation that feeds all that pattern noise.
And that leads to the second strategy, which seems to target occasion noise. Delay and decouple intuition. Basically, resist that immediate gut feeling you get.
Yes, resist premature intuition. You delay the final judgment until after you've considered all the evidence in a balanced way. In Kahneman's terms, you're forcing a switch from that fast, automatic System 1 thinking to the slower, more deliberate System 2.
Right, System 1 is your gut feeling. System 2 is slow, effortful logic. Hygiene forces you to use System 2.
And the third major strategy is about groups, because groups can get notoriously noisy when one person's random error influences everyone else.
So strategy 3 is aggregate independent opinions. You get everyone to make their own judgment before they talk to each other. Averaging those independent takes can drastically cut down the noise.
The math is pretty stunning. If you average, say, 100 truly independent judgments, you can reduce the noise by about 90%. That's why private votes or having people work separately before a big meeting is so critical.
Because once that social influence kicks in, independence is gone and the noise comes right back.
Precisely. So let's try to synthesize all of this. If you had to teach this to a friend, you could say, imagine every important decision in your life is partly a dice roll. Bias is when you know the dice are weighted to always favor one side.
And noises, it's the randomness. The luck, the weather, the judge's mood, the doctor's fatigue, that's what's loading the dice. The fact that the dice are loaded by randomness, not just a systematic tilt, is the huge hidden problem this book exposes.
Yes, this book shows that randomness is this massive, underestimated source of error and unfairness that we've failed to address. We're all too busy looking for bias.
And understanding those three types of noise level, pattern, and occasion, it really changes how you look at expertise. You see that noise is the variability that creates injustice, while bias is the systematic error.
Absolutely. And knowing that even top experts can change their minds on the same case because of occasion noise, it means you should never confuse a person's high confidence with high accuracy. That confidence is often just a feeling, it's not a fact. And knowing noise exists, it just fundamentally changes how you should approach getting a second opinion. It makes independent, structured assessments essential for any big decision. So today we learned that inconsistency in human judgment or noise is a hidden crisis that's just as harmful as bias, and that applying decision hygiene like structuring our judgments and ensuring independence can make a huge difference. Thank you for diving deep with us today. If you found this useful, remember to subscribe to Nonfiction Insights for more deep dives into ideas that can change how you think about the world. This has been Nonfiction Insights.